the start of this year, 2025, Cameroon, civil society, amongst other spheres of our national life, have called for a coalition to be formed by the opposition parties to stand against the ruling CPDM party. Several calls have been made from different quarters. Yet, as we speak, the opposition is not heeding to these calls, insisting that they have what it takes to beat incumbent President Paul Biya and his party. This evening, we're going to be looking at the rivalries that are existing amongst political parties against the call for a coalition. We're going to be asking whether these opposition parties themselves are sabotaging their chance to win this year's presidential election. Good evening, viewers. You're welcome to Prime on My Media Prime TV. We're going to be discussing this with Dr. Michael Dimancho, who is a member of Cameroon Civil Society and also a lecturer with some universities in Cameroon. Good evening, Doctor. We good to have you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Leo. It's a pleasure to be here. And I wish to wish all Christians around the world happy Holy Thursday, happy Ascension, and I'm sending special regards to my father, Papa Dimancho Francis, who is a retired catechist. So I've served a Catholic church for over 40 years and he's retired now. And my mother, Mama Valentina Mbom, all in Kononi, wishing them happy Ascension Day, and to all Cameroonians. And Cameroon, as we are moving towards these very, very crucial moments in the life or the political history of our country, which is the elections in October, I also wish to greet all those who have registered on the electoral register, and ask that registering is one thing and voting is another. So when you register, do not fold your arms. Make sure that when the clock rings and when they declare voting open, please do well to go vote, because experience has shown that many people register but very few vote. If you look at from the history from since 1992, when we started voting, you realize that there's almost always a reduction of about 1 million or 2 from the registration and from voters. And therefore, this time we are calling for a difference. People go massively and vote. Vote for your candidates, vote for the person you think can bring change in Cameroon. But all is that if you wish for change,
all the Catholic Christians worldwide, because they are celebrating the Feast of Ascension.
not only Catholics,
the day
other Christians.
Christians believe that Jesus Christ went to heaven, body and soul. I want to also thank you for this wonderful opportunity that you have given me to come and give my own quarter of nation building, because we come here to see how we can contribute our own little quarter to build the nation Cameroon. I'm also greeting all the population that is watching me from Kappa, especially my wife Constance Shiri and my mother who are watching the program. I want to also thank the promoter of my major Prime Television for giving us this wonderful opportunity to make our own voices heard. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, we'll start with you, Dr. Michael and Dimancho. We're talking about rivalries against a coalition core. What could be animating this rivalry that we observe amongst opposition parties are not necessarily against the CPDM party? What are they fighting against each other for?
Yes, Mr. Leo, it will be important for me to dissect a good number of things about the opposition in Cameroon. I want to say that the opposition in Cameroon is so special and particular, not like any other opposition from my study that I've made. And it will be interesting for our televiewers to know that in Cameroon, from my study and from my research, I have earmarked or outlined 4 different types of opposition parties in Cameroon. The first opposition party that I would like to point out from my study is that opposition which deals with the liberation theology. And the liberation theology of that opposition, first that I'm talking about, is that of Paul Biya must go. That is that opposition that was born in the 1990s and represented very vividly by the SDF. The second opposition that we have in Cameroon is the opposition of cooptation. The opposition of cooptation, that kind of an opposition which thinks that the CPDN should continue, Mr. Biya should continue, but that he should share. He shouldn't go, but he should share with them. So that is that opposition of cooptation that I have realized and studied and earmarked in Cameroon. The third type of opposition in Cameroon is the opposition of proposition. The opposition of proposition is a segment of the ruling party, the ruling CPDM, who think that they are of the modernist side point of view, and they give themselves names. Some call themselves progressive CPDM, some call themselves modernist CPDM. They give themselves different names just to give impression that there is that purity of the CPDM, and that CPDM is undergoing a kind of change, reformation, and that reformation is taking Cameroonians for the better. And they give impression that Cameroonians, they still have a reason to trust the CPDM because they call themselves a progressive, and what is progressive is what is actually having a green light ahead. Now, the fourth kind of opposition that I have studied in Cameroon is the opposition of opposition. Opposition of opposition. Opposition of opposition in Cameroon is the opposition that opposes all the other opposition parties. Now, this is very important, and this now falls within the framework of our discussion this evening, that you have some opposition either by making or maybe by their own kind of weaknesses that they have, or by their own flaws, or we can call it that way, that their main mission is to oppose other opposition parties. Many people have advanced many other reasons why this happened. Some people say that the over 370 something opposition parties that we have in Cameroon, that many are formed with a specified mission to dismantle the opposition. And that is why you find that to have a coalition in Cameroon becomes a very, very difficult thing, because most of the parties whom think are actually worthy and trustworthy, as I would say, sometimes feel very, very skeptical towards the opposition of the opposition of oppositions, because they do not know with whom they are going for a coalition. Because some of these have as mission to dismantle, to destroy what the coalition or the alliances that other parties are having. Now, you understand that during elections, we have had many of them, this perspective, who after election, they come together and they form another coalition to give their vote to the incumbent president. We hear of the G-Vans and the whatsoever. So that is the reason why you find that there is always this ping-pong game that opposition parties, they actually play amongst themselves, because you ask yourself, all of you are striving to a particular goal, and that goal is to change the country, and that goal is to ascend to the high office of the presidency. What is the reason why you live by chasing the elephant that you have to chase, the lion that you are chasing, and you go for rats? It is like someone, like Achebe will say, that he whose house is on fire doesn't go hunting rats. And that is exactly what we have in Cameroon. These are the four oppositions that we have in Cameroon. I talk about the opposition of co-optation, and you also have parties, which I can cite. Opposition of co-optation are parties like the MDR, the Salvation Party, and even now the UPC, that was, stood for the opposition of liberation theology, is now with the co-optation opposition, because the co-optation opposition are those that stand with the ruling party, and you realize during elections they give their vote and they go for a coalition with the ruling party. So for them, they should share with the ruling party, and they also want those favor, and they also have their own lion's share in terms of the senators, in terms of the parliamentarians, in terms of councils and councillors and all of those. So this is what happens in Cameroon, and this has made the political landscape and the scene in Cameroon not to be enjoyable by people, because you find that it is very difficult for Cameroon to live the Kenya experience of 2002, whereby Daniel Moi would willingly, even though was a very, very popular figure, willingly give his vote to Uhuru Kenyatta, in that 2002 Kenya elections. And this is also different. That as we see what happens in Senegal, that will not happen in Cameroon, because you realize that oppositions in Cameroon are kind of opposing themselves, and then the ruling party becomes an alliance that they have.
Yes, good evening to you, Are Rodents, and to you, Akuchu Ase, and all of you watching us on our social media handle, on our Facebook page to be precise. And Mr. Ongwamak, what are they fighting against each other for? Is it to position themselves as the leading opposition party, or actually wanting to get others out of the way?
Mr. Leo, I will tell you, Cameroonians are doing politics of the stomach.
Okay.
Yeah, they are doing politics of the stomach, and nobody is willing to let go. They don't want to form a coalition, because each and everybody wants that they should hear his or her name. If you look at the situation, Dr. Dimancho has just cited the case of Senegal and Kenya. I think they learned from Cameroon in 1992. You know, Frendi went in, or the SDF went in for the presidential elections in 1992 with a coalition. And after that, the special advisor to Professor Maurice Kamto now said Frendi won, and they tricked the elections to maintain. They
stole the elections, yeah.
Yeah, to maintain President Biya in power. So he said it clearly. And now, what happened with that alliance? After that elections, the outcome of it, what happened. But now, the municipal and the legislative elections came up, and the SDF boycotted. That was the destruction of that alliance. Most of those alliance members, the coalition members, left the SDF and joined the ruling CPDM. Until today, they are still whining and dining with the CPDM. So what happened in Senegal is a good example to refresh back our memories of what happened in 1992. But our politicians don't want to copy that example. They don't want to go back to 1992. But what happened? Frunji won this thing. Yes, but what happened? They should learn from that and see how they can re-strategize and move forward.
Yeah, but what
you will see that there are some political parties in Cameroon that does not even have 20 or 30 members, militants. After elections, they disappear into thin air. When elections are around the corner, you see them resurface. Mr. Leo, between you and I, what do you think such parties can do in an election like this? So they have to form a coalition. But now that nobody, the SDF is not ready to let go, we heard the chairman warning his militants in Bafusam that if he hears anybody, any militant, any NEG member talk about coalition again or electoral code, he's going to sanction. So he's not ready for any coalition. Mr. Liu, between you and I, let's go deeper in this SDF issue. It's not a particular problem, but I want people to understand certain things. The SDF, the stronghold of SDF used to be the NOZO, Northwest and Southwest. With the Anglophone crisis, the SDF has lost so many militants in the Northwest and Southwest. They have lost support. Proof being that the chairman had run to refuge in Yaoundé. So the SDF is no longer the SDF that we used to know. Now, when the chairman ran to Yaoundé, I was expecting him to go around the other 8 regions to canvass for more militants, to solidify the SDF. But he never did. He never even went round, even for 2 regions. So, when the SDF wants to go in for this election, what are they counting on? As they want
but you talk about the Social Democratic Front's chairman was in Yaoundé. Remember that I had him twice on this program. He was in the United States of America because of health issues, and he was in Yaoundé. He was not feeling too well. So asking that he move around this nation to solidify the position of the Social Democratic Front, sincerely, at his age, compared with when he was energetic.
Profitez de l'accès Internet à très haut débit chez Swecom. De vos bureaux à vos maisons, vivez l'expérience à bas prix à partir de 25 000 francs CFA seulement. Vous pouvez avoir Internet haut débit, interconnexion, solutions satellitaires, hébergement, transport et distribution des chaînes de télévision et radio sur satellite Amos 17. Et c'est pas tout. Vidéo à la demande. Suivez l'actualité du monde sur vos sites Internet préférés. Des téléchargements non-stop, des divertissements à vous couper le souffle. Tout ceci en des délais très réduits. Swecom, le meilleur fournisseur d'accès Internet par fibre optique. Téléphone 677 80 26 54. Swecom, nous irons plus loin ensemble.
Pay your taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. The solution is close to you. Enter an Express Exchange agency, head to the cash register with your tax notice, and make your payment of tax and custom fees with ease. Receive a confirmation receipt. So cool, Mula. Yes, Mula. From now on, I pay my taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. It's simple. Express Exchange, partner of the Guild and the Directorate General of Taxation. Express Exchange, #1 in quality service in Cameroon.
The 10 regions to explain to the militants what went wrong, what we can do to re-strategize for the upcoming elections and see what to do. The PCRN, Mr. Liu, I will tell you one thing. The politics is a game of interest and it's a game of errors. The ruling party is just benefiting from the
errors of
the opposition to position itself. So once you start arguing amongst yourself within a particular political party, you are already giving room for the ruling party to come in and divide you as you want division. And now when they divide, they take sides. The person that the ruling party will favor, you see that at the end of the day, he falls back with the ruling party. And that is what is dividing or fragilizing the opposition in Cameroon. But they are not really willing to learn from that or those errors of the past, to correct their errors now and stand like one person. Mr. Liu, you will understand that I will just take a small entre parentheses, as the Frenchman says. You see that even some of our Francophone brothers, they have been clamoring for an Anglophone candidate. But today, as we are talking on this platform, Mr. Liu, how many Anglophone candidates have indicated their interest in the upcoming presidential elections?
Yeah, we have Honorable Joshua C. We have Barrister Keremuna. We have Asong Michael. We have Dr. Apostle Ambi. We have Senior Barrister, and
imagine that our Francophone brothers are saying this time let's try an Anglophone. And amongst us, the Anglophones, who are the minority in Cameroon, we were supposed to do everything possible to put at least one candidate and unite behind that candidate, and then have the support of Northwest and Southwest, and then see the population of our Francophone brothers who have been clamoring for this Anglophone candidate to throw their weight behind that candidate. But if only the Anglophones are already having more than 6 candidates, the votes in the NOZO will be divided amongst those 6 candidates. What force do they have?
Okay, let's look at, when you look at the coalition that is around Professor Maurice Kamto, with Honorable Nietzsche as the spokesperson. They say our doors are open for a coalition. The Social Democratic Front says they have already engaged trade unions in a meeting that took place in Kribi, and they say their doors are also open for a coalition. Honorable Cabral Libi says the same, that he is ready for a coalition, provided all of them come together. They put in place parameters for the selection of the person that is going to champion this coalition. Almost everybody says we are ready, yet nothing is happening.
Yes, Mr. Leo, it is understandable, because sometimes good people are politic about these things. In as much as personally I want a coalition, but a coalition should come with a weight. We don't just clamor for a coalition because we want a coalition. Imagine getting a coalition or a party that has only family members as militants. That is no coalition. And I think that this is what opposition parties to are playing at. Because one of the things that has disrupted a coalition in Cameroon, I must tell you, there is this issue of, some people talk about education, some people go into tribal leanings, some people go into number of militants. All of them have a point. All of them have a point, because in the 21st century, at least we need somebody who is well informed to be the president of Cameroon. We do not need, well, even though I usually differentiate political science from politics, but then in this world of today, we need somebody who will be able to adapt to changing times. But then, as I say, a coalition should go with people who can bring something to the table. Because when the SDF says that they have civil society, fine. Because civil society has a following. If it is true, fine. Usually we say that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And it is that, it is when actually the game is at its apogee, it is at the denouement that actually we see who is winning when it is falling down. And that is what we want. And I'm of the opinion too that we will not just out of sympathy say that these two parties should go into alliance. Let us see how this or that party is able to galvanize and have a political following. It is very, very important, because this is what we want to enjoy in politics. The beauty of politics is also about the militancy of politics. It's also about the following of a political party. When we see you stand there and we see a multitude behind you, it makes for the beauty of politics. Not that you go stand there and then you have just a chunk of people who are around you and then you are making noise. Politics is a game of numbers, and I think that this is what these people are playing at. And you know, the 2020 gave us an opportunity to be able to decipher who is a politician and who is an opposition leader in Cameroon. And this is usually always deciphered very, very accurately during the legislative and the municipal election. It is very important. But if you go like that, then you know which party is actually a popular party in Cameroon. It's not about somebody who is just talking or using the media and talking or making noise around the quarters about somebody who is able to pull a crowd. And if you go by 2020 legislative and parliamentary elections, municipal election, you will understand who is who in the political arena in Cameroon. And therefore, when we are talking about coalition, these are the people we should be talking about. But then, I don't also waive the fact that in Cameroon, a political party can win election alone. That can happen, but not in this present dispensation. What we have seen as a civil society activist, we have made a study of that, and we have realized that there is also this game of the ruling party to disintegrate, to segment, and to put apart the opposition parties. It's not as if we are minimizing them to ask them to come to a coalition. It's not minimized, because sometimes when we talk, people retort and say that we are minimizing their power, we are minimizing what they can do. And you see that most of them are spoken to them, and they say that their greatest enemies are other opposition parties. Why? Because each person is very careful about another. Each person looks at another as a seller, because they think that tomorrow in the coalition they are also taking from data. Mind you, Bangwa talked about 1992. Do you know that they were also betrayed and traitors in 1992? That happened, and that has continued up to today. Each time we have a presidential election, you hear people we talk about a coalition, and you see they are always very strategic. They wait 24 hours before talking about their coalition. That is very strategic, because they also know that coming together area means that they are giving an information, giving a leeway for whoever to come in and disintegrate them. Even though their coalition has never ever held any water. But we are saying that these parties, if we are talking about a party in Cameroon, it should be a party that you go to the north and you find a following. You go to the south, you find a following. You go to the northwest, to the southwest, to the west, to the littoral, to the center, and you are able to hear that somebody is coming. Because what I'm reflecting, I'm so nostalgic about, Pangwa talk about the SD. I'm nostalgic about that icon, that legendary Nijom Fundi, who, when anybody heard, just from information in the quarter that he was passing around the quarter, everybody was around the roadside to pull leaves, to welcome him, to give him a heroic welcome, to cheer him up, to praise him. That was the politics that we are talking about. Because this is what we mean by a politician. A politician is like a star, because people want to follow that star. You know, a football star, we have people like Samuel Eto'o. When he comes out here, we find a lot of people following him, and that's why many people are wishing that he joins politics, because people think that he's a star. There's something they want to identify with him. That he's not somebody who passes here and you feel that you find you can count some hair on your head. That is what politics are all about. Then you see your political leader and you just feel so excited to align with him. This is what politics is about. It's not those people who go sit in snack or sit in a quarter and you find people passing and then they don't even want to look at them. These are people that you want to even converse with them. This is what politics is all about. And this is what makes for people to come out when a politician is coming. It is not always that there is an advertisement for him coming. It is always from mouth to ear that this politician is coming and you find that people come out. So this is what we are talking about. That we want heavyweight in politics. We want people who, and heavyweight in politics is about the number. How many people do these parties they have? How many parliamentarians do these parties have? How many councillors do they have? Because that is where even the campaigns go. If you have councillors, especially in the Kononi Council, that is where your campaigns come from. If you have councillors in Akwaya, this is where your campaign first of all comes from. You may not be able to go around Cameroon because your campaign is done by these people in the grassroots. And when we have somebody who is identifiable and who identifies himself with the people, this is what we call politics. And this ping-pong game that they play, I think that they are not helping Cameroonians at all. And as they said in Bafoussam, I align with what the chairman said in Bafoussam. If I hear you having that kind of a ping-pong game with people, just in that kind of, hit and run kind of with words, I am going to sanction you. That is clear. Because I mean, you do not need to argue with people. You do not need to insult people for others to see that you are outstanding. What happened in 2018 was very pitiful, and I hope that it shouldn't happen again in 2025. Where in 2018, when election was approaching, people started with other kind of scheme, tribal scheme, ethnic scheme of Sadina and Tontina. These are things that should not happen in elections. When you are a president, you are a president for the whole of Cameroon. Because tomorrow, if Kabarevi becomes a president, I mean, the Anglophones will not say that he's from the Barcelona. The Nordists will not say that he's from the Barcelona. If tomorrow Mr. Joshua Asi wants to become a president, the Francophone will not say he's an Anglophone. So this game of ping pong that other politicians who are paid, I must say that people are hired to do this kind of thing, to distract people, because there's a scheme of distracting people, letting people go away from what is supposed to be, and steer attentions where it's not supposed to be. That we should centralize our efforts. Let people centralize our effort. Okay. Support the party that you have to support. And I want to actually emphasize on the issue of the manifesto. Why do you support a party? You support a political program in the first place. This is the first thing that you support, the political program. When you like a leader, and you like an opposition leader, the first thing that you like about him is his political program. You don't like him because he's handsome. You don't like him because he's beautiful. You don't like him because he has a nice car or whatsoever. First of all, you like about opposition party is about the program that they have. What are they going to offer for my community tomorrow? This is the first thing, and this is the only, measurement that we can, barometer that we can use to say that this is a good leader. If not, there is no other, because nobody sees the heart. But because that is the only thing at our disposal, is your program. We buy your program, we vote your program, and that's why we ask Cameroonians, go and vote for your program that you love about the political.
Bertus Bright Tipen is watching us from Kumba. Njini Vicky is watching from Bamenda. Njila Betran is watching from Balmayo. Promise Cha is watching from out there. Somebody is talking about the fact that Honorable Joshua Osi, like we were saying, went for treatment in the United States of America. No, we're not talking about Honorable Joshua Osi. We're talking about Frunzi at the time when he was still alive. The last 2 years before he died, he was in the United States of America before coming over to Yaoundé, where he stayed till his death. So it was not about Honorable Joshua Osi. It had more to do with fallen chairman Nijon of Frunzi. Party A wants to present themselves as the best. Party B also wants to present themselves. Do they really sit back to count their resources and their capacity to take voters to victory?
They don't.
They don't sit back to count?
No, they don't. Mm-hmm. Because if they have been doing that for the past elections, we wouldn't have been talking about this topic today. Yes, we wouldn't have been talking about it today. They have never sat back to look at. You remember a while ago I said after elections, those parties will not go back and sit and look at where they went wrong, what happened, what went wrong where, and to correct the errors in upcoming elections. They don't. So anybody just think that, oh, I can come up and make my voice heard, let people know that I'm existing. Some people come up only during elections. So those parties, such parties, what do they have to offer to Cameroonians? Dr. Dimancho has said it all. What we follow in a political party is their ideologies, what they have to offer to the population. Cameroonians are suffering. Any political party that comes up with a good program, I think Cameroonians will fall behind those that political party. And then what the kind of president that we need today, Mr. Leo, is a nationalist. We need a nationalist. A nationalist is somebody who puts the interests of his country first, not his personal interest. I said it in my very first statement that Cameroonians are doing politics of the stomach. It is a selfish interest. Once we see a leader who puts the interests of Cameroonians first, like the problems that are plaguing Cameroon today, we don't have a stable electricity, we don't have good potable water to drink, we don't have good roads. A party that comes up with such an idea and the person is serious to put the interests of the people first, I think that party or that leader merits the support of each and every Cameroonian. So I think that is what we should be looking at before talking about coalition. It's not just like anybody just come up and say, oh, I don't need a coalition, I don't need a coalition. We need a coalition. We have to use the Sonko-Faye panacea to solve the Cameroon problem in this upcoming election, not another election, in this upcoming election. You see where a party like Dr. Dimancho was saying it a while ago, that you see, you can measure the might, the weight of a party in parliamentary and municipal elections. That is one fatal error that the MRC did, and they did not go in for the municipal and the legislative. It is weighing on them right now, and they are facing a lot of problems, a lot of challenges. Imagine the second party in a presidential election. They are not partaking in National Day events because they are not represented in the assembly or in any council and so on. You see that it has caused a lot of problems. Now they have to go into a coalition in order to solidify the opposition bench to face the incumbent. If not, they are still preparing to fail and preparing to give the CPDM another victory in this upcoming presidential election. So for me, my personal standpoint is that the opposition in Cameroon should copy the Senegalese panacea, the Sonko-Faye equation, and I think things will get better. Dr. Dimancho said it a while ago that you have to register and make sure you vote. It doesn't end there. I add that registering and voting are less important. The most important is to protect your vote. Make sure that when they are counting in your polling station, you are there. Film the result on the board, on the result sheet. Film it. Let it go far and near so that it can be easy for any civil society organization, any election or observatory organ to compile those results. And if something goes wrong after the counting in all the various polling stations, then it will be very, very easy to identify where that thing went wrong. And I think that would be the best way and the best thing to do in these upcoming presidential elections in Cameroon.
Okay. Good evening. Mr. Kum and all the panelists are looking at the pace of things and the candidates that have presented themselves. Things will remain the same in this country. The civil society should choose two candidates. Someone like Baisa Bobala is a born natural leader. Remy is watching from Binka in Kambe. Good evening, Mr. Kum and all the panelists in the studio. It's difficult to have a coalition in Cameroon because of greed. Every opposition leader wants to be a presidential candidate, not because he or she wants to win, but to benefit from the money given for campaigns. This is bad mentality, and we can't go anywhere with that, okay? So Emmanuel is writing from Yaoundé. This one says, our opposition parties want a coalition, but each party leader wants to be president of that coalition. No leader wants to bow to the other. Their biggest failure, Mr. Leo. Ashu Myson is writing from Bamenda. Dr. Dimancho, this says, this one, the first one says, from Binka, says that if things were to stay the way they are, nothing is going to change. Calling on the civil society to force for two candidates to present themselves as opposition representatives. How can that be possible?
Well, the civil society, we must know, is only playing an advisory role as far as politics is concerned. When a civil society activist like myself stands up and says that I want Joshua C to be the president of the coalition, or I want Kavarebe to be the president of the coalition, it means that I am already
taking sides,
which is not the role of the civil society. But sometimes we do that Nicodemously, means that we can do that secretly, you know, that we can broker a deal secretly, but not come and announce. And there will be the people to come and announce that we have agreed that the political parties have agreed that, not that the civil society has agreed that. That is one thing that the televiewers should understand. The civil society can only play a role of advising, or the political parties. And one of the ways in which we advise is by actually saying exactly what is supposed to be without taking sides. When you talk holistically, it is important, and let people not always confuse when you talk. For example, like my open letter to the opposition party, which of course I was frank about it, and I presented the things the way they are, gave a historical background of democracy as it started in the 1990s in Cameroon, and I presented to each political party. I sent to them, I said, look at where we are today. Perhaps from the data that I presented to you, you yourself can be able to judge and see what is there. That is the role that we play, that you advise, and then you get them to be able to choose from there. But that notwithstanding, I think that even the electorate too is not only about the civil society. The electorate can be able to choose, and they have been choosing. They are the electorates that choose in the elections. Yes, because they are even asking now the civil society maybe to be able to make a direct choice. But the electorates are the ones that choose their president. In every country, the electorates, they do. But the problem that we have in Cameroon is that the electorates, most of them have sold their consciences for, like Pangwa said, la politique du ventre, as wrote François Bayard in his L'État en Afrique, la politique du ventre. And I think that this is what many people are practicing. Well, some people will tell you that it is difficulties. I remember at one moment during the legendary campaigns of Nijom Frundi, may he rest in peace, he will say, if they give them, we will not take them. Now we not money, not tax money. But I think taking is one thing, and then going to you, to your conscience to vote for a party that your conscience doesn't actually abide by is another thing. So I think the electorate, you people have the role, you people have the authority, you people have the veto powers to be able to choose the presidents in Cameroon. And therefore, those who think that are very stiff, those who think that do not even have any manifesto or programs that are worth it to offer, those who think that are only there, who come to you only during elections, between the periods of election, you don't see them. You see them only when the elections are coming. Those who think that are only there perhaps for their own self-aggrandizement, those that are egoistic. I think that it's time for you, when elections are coming, it is time for you to be able to push them out. Many people have done that in other countries. People have done. And I think that there is nothing like losing hope, because most people will say, we'll vote. What will change? Something will change. It has always changed. We have had cases like that in Senegal. Abdoulaye Wade was there for how many years? He didn't even know that he would ever go. Our next door, Gabon, how many years was the president there? We have so many examples that are abounded in the whole world, and in Africa in particular. And therefore, there is always a time for everything. Perhaps 2025 is also the time that votes can count in Cameroon. And if you stay behind without voting, you know that and something happened that is not supposed to happen. You know that you have taken part willfully in not giving Cameroonians the right to be able to enjoy as with a president that they would have loved to have. And therefore, you need to actively participate. And some people think that we are so passive as far as elections are concerned. And that is why Pangwa talked about defending your votes. And that is why you don't defend your vote. During election we had in 2018, some people came talking about Trangde Peve, and I think that if the electors were there, you will be able to testify the fact that maybe they were not Trangde Peve hidden somewhere, because you were there when they were doing the counting. You are supposed to participate in the electoral process from voting right up to even reading of the elections result. So I think the civil society has done enormously, and I must give one major factor or major point that has favored the work of the civil society towards this election, and is the fact that we have never had the highest that we have ever had as registered voters is 6 million. And that's what we had in 2018. This year we are going up to 8 million. I think that is because of the engagement of the civil society. We didn't relent our efforts. We worked hard day and night to be able to sensitize. And you and the electorate today accepted. If you accepted to register, it means that you accepted a change. How will you accept the change then? And then at the end, at the tail end, you actually, let go that change that you accepted to effect. So I think that the civil society have been doing its work, and the only delicate thing about it sometimes is that we have our party at heart, and then we have our opinion that we have to offer. But then deciding now on leaning on our political view and political party that we have at hand and expressing our own objective view is always a very, very delicate thing. And that is why it's always going to be holistic, present the things the way they are without taking side. And that is why you realize that most of our funds and our chiefs and our lamidos have problems now, because they have their parties in their hand and they have what they are supposed to protect in tradition. But some have abandoned the tradition and now they are following the political parties and doing it overtly. And this is what the civil society shouldn't do. The civil society has a role to advise, and that is the role that they have been playing in Cameroon. And when you hear people like Joshua Osi, of course, they say they are going into partnership with civil society. It is not as if civil societies are coming, to say, Joshua Osi, you are the one. No. We have different civil societies. Even teachers association is civil society. You have many other civil societies around. Nurses association are civil society. But we have people who have the role of a civil society to educate. And therefore, if a teachers association, for example, comes, I doubt whether they should really be able to take that position, because when you come and take that position and say we the teachers association are decided to support this party, sometimes it's also very delicate. But then I think that the civil society as a whole, be they the nurses association,
loyalty is key in both love and family relations. That is why it needs to be rewarded. Throughout this year, there is 500 millions to share as a reward for your loyalty. Subscribe to the OM Loyalty Program no matter your network on #150*0# or via the OM tab on Max Eat. Accumulate up to 100 points and win 10,000 francs automatically every month. And you also become eligible for other great prizes. Try your luck. You too can become a winner. We are Bango right to the end.
Pay your taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. The solution is close to you. Enter an Express Exchange agency, head to the cash register with your tax notice, and make your payment of tax and custom fees with ease. Receive a confirmation receipt. So cool, Mula. Yes, Mula. From now on, I pay my taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. It's simple. Express Exchange, partner of the Guild and the Directorate General of Taxation. Express Exchange, #1 in quality service in Cameroon.
The voter party will find out that people say they don't want to waste their time.
Yes, Mr. Leo, that's what we have been talking here since the beginning of the program, because you cannot have stronghold in all the 10 regions. Yes, you cannot. You must have a stronghold somewhere, maybe 2-3 regions, and the rest of the regions, other opposition parties who have strongholds in those areas where you don't have stronghold. Now, if all of you come together, you see that you are going to form a solid opposition. But if you go in divided lines, I think it's just a child's play, because nobody, I've said it and I'm still saying it, I don't see any political party that will stand on its own and win elections in this country, because you have to look at the way the elections are being organized in the country first. Look at the electoral code. Look at the way it functions. I would take us back memory lane when the last presidential elections in 2018 were held. You saw MRC party came up with a college of lawyers who quoted all the laws in Cameroon or in the world. And the president of the Constitutional Council said he listened to all of them and said irrecevable at the end of the day. But I'm telling you, Mr. Liu, if it was a serious coalition with many big names that we know, many big names in terms of parties, like the MRC, the SDF, PCRN, that came in a block, I think things wouldn't have gone the way they went. So I think I'm still for the fact, and with those televiewers who are still emphasizing on a coalition. But now you hear all the political leaders, the presidents and chairpersons of the various parties. This one will say, my doors are open. This one says, my doors are open. They don't want to, nobody wants to take the first step. Nobody wants to say, okay, let me go meet MRC. Let me go meet SDF. Let me go meet a PCRN. Everybody says, my doors are open. My doors are open. Somebody needs to take the first step. Once you take that first step, you start knowing who are the real opposition leaders that you can work with. Because when you go to A says, okay, I'm okay. Now, what are the criteria for us to choose a candidate? Now, you start thinking and you see that you guys are moving towards the same direction. But once you say, my doors are open, and you lie back, waiting for somebody who will come and beg you first, this one is waiting, this one is waiting, at the end of the day, there is no serious coalition. So I think the first step has to be taken by somebody and then go towards the other ones, and before you know it, we may have a good coalition in Cameroon. But if everybody stays back and say, my doors are open, my doors are open, you see why they say my doors are open? Because they know that if I come to you now, Mr. Leo, you are the head of a political party. If I come to you now, you will say I have to come under you. And now, Mr. Dimancho, Dr. Dimancho there comes to me, I will say, no, you have to come under me. Whereas that is not how you form a coalition. You guys accept to come together first. That's the first point. You set down criteria of how you will choose a leader amongst you, the flag bearer of that coalition in the elections. It's not somebody saying, you must come under me, you must. I think that is the problem that we have in Cameroon. And once we start looking towards one direction, that the most important thing is that we come together first, set out conditions, the criteria that we have to use to choose a flag bearer. I think that will be a good part for the opposition in Cameroon. So I think, you see in Senegal, when Sonko saw that, no, he had lost everything to stand as a presidential candidate. What did he do? He said, vote for Faye. And we saw the result. Why not do that in Cameroon? Why can we not copy that example of 1992? It was the parliamentary and legislative election that scattered that coalition in 1992, when you have the NUDP and other parties that left and went now for the presidential elections separately, and these guys are still having parliamentarians in the assembly right up till today. So I think we should always sit back, reflect, and see where we went wrong, correct the errors of the past to better the future.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo and all the panelists. This is Mr. E from Douala. Kudos for the good work you are doing in educating Cameroonians. To be honest, I think it is very sad to comprehend that despite several calls for opposition political parties to go into effective coalition, we still have opposition parties opposing themselves. The big question I have for all opposition leaders is, how can we trust our future into their hands when they cannot prove to us that they actually listen to our cries? Let our opposition parties look at next door Nigeria, where opposition parties have begun coalition 2 years to the elections. Why must opposition parties in Cameroon deceive Cameroonians that they are serious? This is the cry of a peace-loving Cameroonian who wants change through the ballot box in a democratic manner. He's raising an issue we have also raised on this platform severally. We say government does not listen to the people. The people say we want a coalition. Yet each opposition party says no. What you need is not a coalition. You need me. A says you don't need a coalition, you need me. B says you don't need a coalition, you need me. C says you don't need a coalition because I don't trust these guys, but you can trust me.
Yes, there is also something about the fundamentals of forming
a coalition,
which is people have to understand. You don't get up just a money and form a coalition.
Yes, but this has been a cry.
Yes,
the new since 2018 that the elections were coming up today, this year.
When we started this program, I gave the different kind of political parties that we have in Cameroon. Oppositions.
Yeah.
I mean, you should know that they are opposition in the opposition. And these opposition, the opposition can never coalesce. They can never come into alliance. This is one thing that Cameroonians they need to know. That many parties are formed in Cameroon for different purposes and not for the purpose of election. I'm all said that there are many opposition parties who do not want to take the presidency, who do not want to, contest for the presidency in Cameroon. This is a fact. Because when you even look at some political parties that, how can we say that we have 300 and something political parties? I don't hear about them. We can only think about, a few of them who are active. For now, I can think about 9 who are very active. So, how do you think that these parties, I don't blame the electorate, those in the audience who are called, they are right. They are very, very correct. But I just want them to understand one fact, that the case in Cameroon is not the case in Nigeria. You see in Nigeria already, I even see, so Peter Obi is already trying to come into a coalition. He even met with Tinubu and appears as if they want to come into a coalition. Fine, these are two extreme people and elections is when? 2027. So you find that people are already preparing now.
Same in Kenya.
Same in Kenya. 2026, Kenya is already into a coalition. So I think that the case in Cameroon that I'm trying to explain, I've started at the start of this program, is far more different. That Cameroonians are good for politics that is not identifiable anyway. And first of all, the politics in Cameroon, for most of it is selfish. It's very, very selfish. Let people understand that the politics in Cameroon is selfish. Because people keep asking questions. Why is it that they cannot do this? Why is it they cannot want to see this? But if you understand and study the political, first of all, go political party by political party. It is not about talking global and say these people should come together. Go party by party. Look at the history of that party. Look at even the founders of that party. One of the issues even about political parties in Cameroon is that somebody founds a party or creates a party and the person is eternally the president of the party or the chairman of the party or the person who controls the party from behind. A party is supposed to be a moral organization whereby a group of people create. I do not know this concept where they say somebody particularly has a party, because to form a party you need people to come together. But a party is formed under an association. You don't form an association alone. This is according to the 1990 law on liberation of association, creation of association, all these. You don't form an association alone. When you want to form an association, you must have at least who is a president, a secretary, a treasurer, and all of those. You must line up them before it is signed. How does it not come that at the end of it all, somebody will sit and say, this is my party. And then maybe you give it to somebody and start, like you give a goat and you are pulling the rope behind. Like what we're having with the PCRN or Cabral Libi, whereby you have Pakuna, Mr. Robert Kuna, who is actually claiming to own the party. Now there's a new chairman or the president of the party, but now he wants to take the party back. So a party is not like a slice of meat that you come and say, oh, you slice it and then you, or maybe you say, this is my slice of meat. Or you don't have a land title in a party. You're not supposed to have a land title. And that is why what encourages clientelism in a party, because when you find that there is somebody who is in command of all, a lot of things may not always move right, because if it's in a party where one person is deciding, it is wrong. Because one of the things that we have among this party is internal democracy. We are even complaining about the democracy in Cameroon, within Cameroon as a whole. The despotic and autocratic system that are in this opposition party, it cannot be written, a book cannot contain. Because you have them who they do not have any democracy in the party, whereby you find the same people who are there. I mean, even the media, you can confirm that you invite a party, it's always the same person who comes. It means that that person in that party doesn't have a secretary, it doesn't have a publicity secretary, it doesn't have this, doesn't have a vice, it doesn't have this. So you find that people own parties, and when you own parties, what do you imply? The implication, what you are insinuating is that it is my thing. And if it is your thing, and you do not see where there is an advantage of taking that thing to, you don't go. So it is not the thing that represents or stands for the masses. It's not the thing that you want to use to break the shackles of corruption, the shackle of despotism, and the shackle of mismanagement. But it is your thing because you want to leverage it to become rich. This is what is happening in Cameroon, and that's why I earmarked 4 types of parties that we have in Cameroon: a party of liberation theology, a party of co-optation, a party of proposition, and a party of opposition. Imagine an opposition opposing an opposition.
Okay.
This is what we have in Cameroon.
Wombe Timothy from Boya says, good evening, Mr. Liu. Let elections be handled by our universities. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. I think the opposition parties should take coalition as the last resort to push out the incumbent and change things in this country. Carlos is writing from Mutengene. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Thank you for this great program. Just wish to ask where Elecam office is located in Kumba so that I can go and register for the elections before close the electoral list. Ate Ivo is writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Anise from Yaoundé. I wish to ask, how do coalition governments represent the interests of different groups and constituencies? For the person who is writing from Kumba, please, I do not know specifically where the Elecam office in Kumba is, but I'm sure if you go to any of the councils, the council offices in Kumba, they will direct you to where these Elecam offices are located. If there are 2, I don't know, but just go to any council. Could be Kumba 1, Kumba 2, or the city council. Ask for the Elecam office. They are certainly going to direct you. Now, the issue of a coalition. Persons say, okay, there is a coalition around Professor Maurice Kamto as we speak. There is a coalition around Barrister Kere Mona and around Honorable Joshua Osi. Yeah, but can we talk of a veritable coalition, opposition coalition, without these main parties?
We cannot, Mr. Liu, because I said it a while ago that when we are talking about coalition, we talk about the parties that matter within the Cameroonian political scene. And those are the parties that you have just cited. Even the PCRN, it has made its name known within the Cameroonian political scene. So these are the parties that are supposed to come together to spearhead the coalition, and then for the smaller parties to rally behind them. So it is all about these main political parties. We can judge them from the last elections, the 2018 presidentials, and the last parliamentary elections. So if these guys come together, set down criteria, we are talking this thing, and we are talking as if elections are still far. They don't even have time anymore, because if they have to come together, they have to do that very snappy, because elections are around the corner already. So if these guys come together and form a coalition, they put down their criteria, put down the conditions to follow, come out with a single candidate that will represent all these candidates. We know the various percentages that PCRN, MRC, and SDF had during the last presidential elections. So I think if these guys go by their percentages, I think they should come together, form a solid group. Those percentages now will come to be 1%, representing the whole of that block, and the smaller parties that will see that, oh, if these giants have come together, what are we doing behind? Let's join the moving train and see how we can bring change. Remember, a bishop once said, even if it is the devil that will take over power, let there be a change of name first. Let the devil take first. So I think that is the common goal that opposition parties, if they really want to take over power, should put in front. That whosoever take it, let that person take it first. Let's come together and take it first. I think that should be the main thing that the opposition parties should be looking at. That should be the very first thing. That the main problem now is to take over power from the CPDM first. Once they don't look at that direction, they are merely wasting their time, and nothing will change from the upcoming elections. Nothing will change. It would maintain, as one televiewer said, that nothing will change. He is very correct. And that is the same thing that we have been saying here. So the opposition, our role is to call the opposition to unite if truly they want to take over power in Cameroon and bring the needed change.
Okay. For the person who is asking for where the Elecam office in Kumba is located, Mr. Akwo, writing from Kumba, says Elecam office in Kumba is at Up Station, adjacent the SNEC office. Thank you very much, Mr. John Akwo. So Elecam office in Kumba is located at Up Station, adjacent the SNEC office. You know where that is. You can rush there to register. Dr. Dimancho, as we speak, we hear there is a coalition around Professor Maurice Kamto, and there is a coalition around Dr. Akere Muna, and there are other coalitions. Can we today confidently say these coalitions can go and win these elections?
Well, I'll take that with a pinch of salt, because if you want to go detailing about the coalition, let me start with Maurice Kamto. He has a coalition with Honorable Ninche and Mr. Olivier Billet with their FCC and whatsoever. And already it is as if with Maurice Kamto, we are not yet sure of what is going to happen. And people are also very careful, because you must know about this issue of coalition. Other political parties too are careful not to go in a coalition with a party that may not perhaps be able to get into elections. But then, if Maurice Kamto were to be eligible with his MRC, I think that he has stood the test of time, if I go by data. As a civil society, I want to be objective. That if I go by the data of 2018, yes, presidential election, Maurice Kamto remains the second most powerful opposition leader in Cameroon. That is a fact. Nobody can argue that, because the statistics are there. He came second in the 2018 presidential election. And our projections were that if he were to go continue in 2020, perhaps we would have been talking of something different today. But then, forming a coalition when you do not know whether you will go for presidential election, to me, that is distraction. I would have thought that in 2018, Mr. Akere, who is now garnering another support and having his own coalition here, and who actually gave him a pass in 2018, gave his weight to his party in 2018, he should also do the same now that he is doubting where he is going to. Because it is not like he is doubting. I'm saying because I look at the electoral law, and I see that he is not qualified, except that he goes through the flag of another party. And therefore now we will not be talking about the MRC.
Of course.
We will now be talking about something different. We will talk about Maurice Kamto taking the flag of a different party, or going with a signature as an independent candidate. We will not be talking about MRC. So already for MRC is KO. That one we know, and nobody can gainsay that fact, because we are talking from the law that we are reading. And garnering, that kind of, support around him, knowing that the MRC will not be there.
May not. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. No, MRC will not be. There is nothing about may not.
You are not the constitutional council.
Of course, we are looking at the law now, Mr.
No, they say they will go. So you are you.
Okay,
you are not the court.
I don't argue that fact.
You are not the court. You are not the court. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I talk as a civil society, and I talk looking at the law.
Okay.
And I said, from the law they have read, except there is another one hidden somewhere, fine, they will go. But I want to see how they will go. Now, talking about the coalition around Mr. Keremuna, I think that going to a coalition too, I will have some critique here that he needs to look for heavyweights with whom to go for a coalition. It is very important. As I said earlier, you will not be wanting to actually pull, a weight, towards something, and then you go and you don't get the necessary support. When a tree, when you want your plantains to bear well, what you do is that you put ground around it. To actually make it develop. So it is important for him. He has started. It is good. I'm not saying that what he has around him is not really a quality, but this is not yet up to expectation. But I think that he is still working. And already, what is important that there is that good faith that he has to be able to welcome other coalition. And this I have heard him say. I'm not just suggesting. He say he has a good faith and he is willing. He is waiting. And he is even willing to give his place to another person if in a coalition they decide that it will be this person.
Exactly what we have been saying.
Yeah, this is good faith. And in that perspective, I would think that this is an open candidate. And this is a candidate, of course, that most Cameroonians may want, depending on their goals and their aspirations. And now, the next level we look at, he came out with his 10 points. And they are under study. Now we want to see how he can be able to gather that support that he has around him. Apart from the coalition that he has around him, what popularity does he pull in Cameroon? And someone called me the other day and I said, if you are in good talking terms with Mr. Akere, tell him actually to also go to the international media and talk. That it is important. When you're doing campaign, he should not close himself up. Let him open himself, go to international media, and also do international mediation, which is also important. That to help. So I think that it is good that we know that name. That is somebody who is not just from anywhere, because one of the arguments of the coalition in Cameroon has always been around education. You remember when Nijon Fundi was there, if I must tell some people why some political parties always advance as a problem, that why should they go and align with somebody who is not as educated as they are? I'm privy to that information. And I've always told people that political science is different from politics. Nijon Fundi knew how to play politics, but there are many people who have done political science who cannot play politics. Of course. So what I'm saying that now those who argue for education, now they have had a legal luminary, a baobab of the law called Akeremuna, a former bâtonnier and a former president of Transparency International, somebody who has fought corruption and people have seen. So if you really want that educated person, then you have a match for him. This is somebody now who is here at your beck and call. So why don't you now support? That is the question. So now we may not be talking now again about the issue of the coalition, because at least we have had somebody who has shown some good faith that he can do a coalition. But now, what precedence does the person have? Because this is what people always want to see. What precedence does he have? Univer Party. How is it implanted in other regions? Because he may have that credibility to run in Yaoundé, in Douala, in Bafoussam, in Ebolova, in Gaoundéré, in Maroua, in Garo, and all of those places. But going into the hinterlands, if people do not know that party called Univer, which he's going under, means that there's going to be a problem with the coalition, because the coalition is under that party. That is it. And therefore, there is a need for the Akele coalition to get into the hinterlands, to employ the youth, to get the youth to be informed. You know, the world of today is fast. And if you want your information to go fast, you go fast. And the second thing, elections and campaigns, politics is all about money. Because you will not play that politics if you don't have the money. We have had presidents who have done. You first have your popularity. Yes, it counts that you have a name. But secondly, people will tell you that, even those who work for you will tell you that they will not get into the hinterlands with that money. And that is why one of the greatest chunk of money that is usually set aside when it comes to party politics is on communication, on campaign. And if you do not have that money, You may have the credibility, but you do not have. They usually say that. They usually say an empty hand does not go into the mouth. Yeah. That is the thing.
Okay.
And therefore, he needs to saddle his horse, get prepared, and move.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. I have been following every of your political programs in the last 2 years, and this topic has been mentioned in more than half of them. Now, I will conclude that these opposition parties probably are agents of the regime. I followed the posture of several opposition parties in other countries before elections. Our own is totally different. I say this, our opposition leaders are even more enlightened about this, much more than us. But if they think this is the best positions to take at this time when Cameroonians are most politically vulnerable, then the bit conclusion is that they are agents of the regime. I'm sorry, Mr. Nimancho, for hammering and cracking his voice every day on this topic. He says, yes, it takes pity on you. These opposition leaders are most unpatriotic. Thank you for the continuous reminder. Radisson Blue is writing from Sweden, I'm sure. I see only 3 opposition parties in Cameroon: PCRN, SDF, and MRC. I see by Sakeremuna trying to rekindle the hopes of the PAP, not bad. But I think if these 4 can put heads together, Cameroonians will not fail to rally behind them. I'm watching from Tombel. Greetings, Mr. Leo. Creating different coalitions is creating more division in Cameroon, and this will give more room for the CPDM to gain grounds in Cameroon. Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's JC Gabila from Bafusam. The debate is so fantastic. This one says, what's the reason for many political parties when no change seems to be far-fetched? DRC has more than 230 political parties, yet no raison d'etre. Please, my take is that the youth of Cameroon needs to understand that this election is an opportunity for them to take the bull by the horn. We need Ibrahim Traore, okay? The selfish ambitions of the leading opposition party leaders can't allow them form a meaningful coalition. The ruling party, with its divide and rule tendencies, will not allow the opposition to come together. The coalition will be formed just on the eve of the election and will be successful. Barrister Keremuna will lead them. Bonnie M is writing from Kumba. Okay, now we are in May, not far from here. From now, we're going to be called to the polls. Do we still have time to put together a formidable force that can meet the aspirations of Cameroonian voters?
Yeah, I think we still have a little time. Based on the heavyweight opposition parties, because even at the eve of elections, they can still form a coalition, but they must play the game behind the scene. If they want to succeed, they should play that game behind the scene, concerting themselves behind the scene, coming into an agreement, and then just wait for that time. When that time reaches, they declare that this is the opposition candidate. I think by so doing they can succeed. But if they keep on in this disorder, saying my doors are open, my doors are open, my doors are open, I think it's going to end up in a chaos. So, Mr. Leo, I really feel so touched with the contributions of the televiewers, because they are really following the political scene in Cameroon, and they are very much aware of what is happening. There are calls for the opposition to come into a coalition. There are calls for them to leave selfish interests. There are so many calls, and that is what we have been saying here since the beginning of this program. So they are just throwing their weight on what we have been saying here. And if the political party leaders really have Cameroonians' interests at heart, let them heed to the calls of Cameroonians, because I think that will be the way out. If not, I don't see any way out. They are still preparing. You know, they say if you fail to prepare,
It's preparing to fail.
is preparing to fail. So that is a simple truth. Let them do something and come to a coalition. And I want to thank that televiewer who wrote from Tombel. He mentioned PAP in the Barrister Keremona's coalition, because you see, you can now see the impact that visit in Tombel has created there. Maybe there are so many of them who are already looking in that direction, who do not have the means to ride, but it has already impacted positively the inhabitants of Tombel. That visit with Barrister Kerimuna and the PAP and other parties. So that is what we are expecting from the opposition, to go to all the nooks and crannies of Cameroon. The ruling CPDM is represented in all the 350 how many councils in Cameroon, but most of these parties are not represented in all these areas, and that is why I've been saying that a coalition is important, because the SDF may be strong in the Nozo, the MRC strong in the west and maybe littoral, the PCRN is strong in Yaoundé and maybe south, and if all of them come together, you will see that the coalition is represented in all the nooks and crannies of Cameroon. That is the most important thing for them to do, because you cannot be strong everywhere. It is impossible, and you cannot have the means to campaign right down to the grassroots during these upcoming elections. So the need for that coalition that we are clamoring for is to make sure that the coalition has representatives in all the 350 something councils in Cameroon. That is the main thing. If they fail to do that, I don't see anything good that can come out from these elections.
Okay, don't see anything good that can come out of the elections. Dr. Andy Mancho, you met with some of these opposition party leaders. You wrote to them. What did they tell you?
Well, one of the things that, as I said, is that each person thinks that single candidates have won elections in other countries. And therefore, why do I think that they must come to a coalition in Cameroon for the win elections? And you see the boldness, you know, the assurance, the audacity with which many of them talk. And I took a retrospective look. I gave a panoramic view of how elections have been run in Cameroon. And I said, look at this year. This is what you had. Because starting even from 1992, where, I mean, we can only appreciate the SDF for what they did. But when you go from 1992, we go to 1997, it's a catastrophe. From 1997, we had another election. 2002 was a catastrophe. Because when you look at, since 1992, I mean, President Paul Biya has now always won with about 99%, always 90-something%, as apart from 1992. And then you ask yourself that, but even look at the last election. I asked them.
No, it's not with 90-something. It was 70-something, because if you take Cabral and OC and Kamto, and then we have the other guys.
That is still a figure that is over sweeping. And I said, look at 2018. Yeah, you talk about Cabral or OC. The second had, I mean, it was 17%.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, that is not something comparable. Look at the second candidate. 70%.
But it will not be 90-something, because.
Well, that is true. Yeah. I mean, his statistics is wrong, but I think that the result is not encouraging. And of course, anybody who will look at it and say that if the second candidate is coming with 17%, it means that you want to say that you have worked so hard between 2018 and 2025 to be able to get maybe more than 50% to add to what you have to be able to win the incumbent president. Remember that as you are trying to work, the CPDM, the party in power, is also working. It's not as if they are sleeping. It's not as if you just get the one money and then you just get the electorate to vote for you. They have their machineries.
That's why I was saying a while ago
they have their
that
machineries.
these guys are taking advantage of the division within the opposition ranks to fortify themselves.
Remember too that a coalition is not even a guarantee that you'll be able to say true. A coalition is just the fact that, okay, when you have a broom together with so many items, it will be very difficult to break. This is just what we are talking about, a coalition. And that anybody looking at very strong people with militant behind them will be afraid to do certain kind of things. But when you are alone, it is easy to manipulate. Because I understand that if there was a strong coalition behind John Frundi in 1992, they wouldn't have done any, that wouldn't have happened. Because, from the revelation that Aben Zonga and the rest they gave, it shows as if they looked at him, he was alone, and they knew they could not give him. So that is why we are encouraging a coalition. If not, we have had political parties who have talked about the electoral code, which needs to be revised. The MRC has been talking about it. They even went up to the High Court and they say the Constitutional Council says it's not their competence. If the Constitutional Council says that it's not their competence to look at the electoral code, but they take care of the election result and all of those, and then who else is competent to look at the electoral code? So now you already see that it is something that is so difficult. We recently, some few months back, we saw how a former senator from CPDM was appointed member of Electoral. So you cannot say that you stand by the moving water and disapprove of his current. That is what I've always said. That if you are from this party appointed to this organ, I don't think that you would favor any other thing apart from the party where you come from. So we are saying that let these opposition parties know that as they are trying hard to do what they are doing to win militants, the ruling party too is tightening their mechanism. And that is something they know since 1992. They have been working on that. Somebody even said that the mistake that we committed in 1992, we will never commit it again. That was something from the CPD talking. And now you understand that a lot is being done, and they too are tightening their holes where they made mistake they are trying to fix. Given to the fact that civil servants, many of them are members of the party. You find ministers with party regalia on, which is not supposed to be so. A minister is not supposed to be carrying a party regalia, party uniform, a party ashwabi. So you find that they have.
What if the minister is appointed by the president of the republic? He also has a right to militate with the party.
No, the appointment does not give you the right or the legitimacy or
our minister of tourism is of the NUDP. He's the national president of the NUDP party. You won't also refuse that you should not put on the NUDP.
No, but of course, that's the president of the party now, Mr.
Yeah, as well as the minister of Chiroma.
Even Chiroma,
so
National Salvation Party. Yeah, he should put on his regalia.
What stops a minister? What stops a minister who militates with a party to put on
a minister who is appointed? Yes, is appointed to serve
by the national chairman of a party.
That appointment doesn't come because he is a militant of that party. That appointment comes because he's competent as an administrator to serve all Cameroonians.
We've seen President Trump of the United States of America. His guys are from the Republican Party.
Of course, you don't bring people who are not from your party to be around. What we are saying is this issue, and I know you also argue the fact that because they are from the party, they will use the ministerial equipment.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's
not what I'm saying.
No, of course, because that cues in from what you are saying. That's what we are saying, that there should be this passionate from belonging to a party, militating, and that's why we condemn about chiefs and funds.
Of course.
Because when a chief puts on, or a fund puts on a party regalia, what is that chief saying? Even though he has the right to vote to a party, but he should be in his heart. When he puts on his own, what is he telling the people? His subject. He's telling his subject that I am now here and nobody should argue with me.
Mr. Dimancho, I will even add to that by saying that if you and I come from the same village and now we have issues, maybe a land dispute or something, we go to the palace for the fund to try to settle it, and now you belong to the funds party. I belong to the opposition. How is it going to solve that problem?
That impartiality will no more be.
That is it.
So I think that this is just what we are talking about, and if this is what has been happening, we just say that it is wrong. We cannot say, because if something has been happening, that we just appreciate and say, since we have been having it is something that should be validated. It is wrong, because there are things that you will not do, or there are things that you will do because you are a member of that party. And if you were impartial, leaving that regardless, leaving that and putting that party only in your hand, you'll be able to serve Cameroonians better.
Okay.
You realize during campaigns, what happens? Many of the state funds and all of that are being carried away because the people say that they belong to this party. This is clear. This is what is happening. And this is what we are condemning. That during campaign, you are not supposed to abandon your office to go for campaigns because you say you are militating in this party. That happens where? The U.S., even Trump that you are talking about, that will not happen in the U.S., where you leave your office to go and campaign for Trump. That doesn't happen. They sue you. So
did we not see the Vice President of the United States of America moving around America campaigning?
No, of course, the Vice President is supposed to campaign. He's the Vice President.
As well as other militants.
You don't give credibility to what
I'm just asking. I'm asking questions.
Yeah.
I'm not saying. I'm asking the questions.
The Vice President has to go out and campaign. It is normal.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Your programs are really educative and lively. Honestly, it will be very difficult for a coalition to succeed because the government has all of the strategies and means to dismantle any coalition. Almost all the polling agents will be bought by the government, and the Electoral too is not doing us any good. Can you tell me where the youths of the Northwest and Southwest took money and supported the candidacy of the head of state when they are not even able to raise 15,000 francs to register a concours that has been launched? Mr. Chofo Wilson, Folepi, writing from Folepi in Wabane. Good evening, Mr. Liu. You, Judge from Yaoundé. It is said that there is no election in the Northwest and Southwest region, and how do you intend to do the elections in those areas? Greetings, Mr. Liu. The political party leaders should rescue Cameroon by keeping aside selfish interest so that after taking power, they can now readjust the system. Tata Nobet Nyinka in Afanayo, Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Kum. I'm called Babila, writing from Bambili. A coalition is good, but who will lead it and how will the leader be chosen? Suggestions. Okay. Now, if you were to advise our opposition leaders, what would you tell them on how to go about and then adopting a leader for the coalition?
Yes, I will tell them that they should first of all agree amongst themselves to form a coalition. Once they agree on that, they now come together and put down criteria to choose the leader or a leader amongst themselves. It shouldn't be that kind of chaos that happened. I've forgotten the year there was an election that was coming up, and the SDF, the CDU in Damjoya, they went in for a coalition. They set down certain criteria and they started following the criteria step by step. They got to a point where everything scattered and some of those people left, and the SDF finally went for the elections alone. It shouldn't be that kind of coalition. They should first of all know that amongst the coalition, anybody, any of them can be the president. But the very first step is to come together. Now they set down their conditions, choose the leader, and push the leader ahead. When the leader comes up, like what I heard Barrister Kremuna saying, he was talking about a transitional government, which means if he even wins the election, he's doing a transition. I think that is what the opposition bench should be looking at. That they are coming up, their main aim is to first of all take power from the long ruling CPDM. Once they take the power, they now form a coalition government and see how they can touch the electoral code, touch so many things, harmonize everything so that the next election will be free, fair, and transparent. So that is the advice I think I can give the opposition leaders in Cameroon, especially for this upcoming presidential election.
Okay.
That is my take.
Yes, and to you, what would be your advice to them?
That they should look at the political programs of each and every party. This is the first thing that they look at, because they have different political programs. You have like the SDF that has the federal kind of government. You have Pesa or Kabalibi, they have the communal federalism. So you need to put this in a basket, and you sift out, you see where they have the meeting points, they have divergence and all of those. It is very important, because you will not enter deep water like that one, get into coalition blindly, because most problems may arise. Many people who have gone into a coalition without thinking have had a civil war, and the war is usually within the government. It starts within the government. So they need to be able to take that political programs first. Do they match? Do they get together? What do you have and what do I have? Bring it together. And that is why we kept on saying that this takes time. It takes a lot of time to study all that and know who is agree with you. Because taking power is one thing, consolidating the power is another thing. There are also coalitions in some countries that have taken power and then they just run for one term, and that power is taken away from them because they could not get through. Or you get in with hot blood, and before you know it, you have lost it all, because you did not preempt things. You did not project. You didn't look ahead to see what is going to happen. It is just about me taking power. Now, when I have the power in my hand, how am I going to use this power? This is very, very important, because let me not lie you, as Ngungi Wachungo, whom I'm celebrating, may soon rest in peace, he died yesterday, would say in I Will Marry When I Want, you don't run away from cold land to find yourself in frost land. It is very, very, very terrible, or to run away from rain and find yourself in a stream. So you need to calculate some of these things and look at the pros and the cons, look at what favors you, the negative and the positive. Look at this political leader. What has he to give and what has he been working? What are the points of divergence that you have? And then you come and form a solid coalition that is sustainable. Not a coalition that is built on sand, but with a solid foundation. So there is a lot of things that are implicated, because it is not just about a liberation theology, as the SDA will have. Pobia must go, Pobia must go. Now, when Pobia goes, what next? What is it that Cameroon is waiting for? I know that they have a political program for a federal government, but some people may not have, and some parties may not have. They may just lie down on that theoretical liberation slogan. So that is what I would advise the opposition parties. If not, then they should not plunge us into a kind of a civil war.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Forming a coalition on the verge of elections is sheer waste of time. Communicating a sudden change to people in the rural areas will be very difficult. Furthermore, the CBDM, which controls the printing and electoral materials, will frustrate the coalition by presenting the materials for all the candidates without taking into consideration any coalition. Simon is writing from Bomenda. Prof. Kamto is a legal mind and has worked in government for long, so I think he should lead the coalition. My thoughts, yes, but are we aware that we're going to have not more than 3 weeks to campaign? Because seemingly we think
2 weeks.
that, yes, seemingly it looks like we have so much time.
Mr. Leo, ideologies is what matters. If you have good ideologies, I think when time comes, even if it is 1 week, once you have planted a network that will go to all the nooks and crannies.
We are talking about 10. We are talking about 10 regions with divisions, with subdivisions, with villages. Now, it will require that you move through all the regions, all the divisions, down to the subdivisions and villages. Can you actually do that as a single party? Maybe you are a party that is located somewhere in Mora. How do you get to San Melima? How do you get to Kribi? How do you get to Esu? How do you get to Zwa? How do you get down to Furuawa from Mora? If you are not capable of mobilizing the required human and financial resources. How do you get to the radio stations in Mwa? How do you get to the rural radio stations in Mamfe and across Cameroon?
That is why I said all these political big wigs in the opposition are not coming from one region. They come from different regions.
Yeah, because
and once they come into a coalition, Mr. Leo, we know that SDF is very strong in the northwest and southwest. Good. They can handle that with the district chairpersons, regional and so on. We know that PCRN can be very strong in the littoral and in the center region. Now, if the militants of SDF in center and littoral know that PCRN has gone into a coalition with SDF, they will do that job there for the coalition. And that is why I said, now you look at MRC, if they are strong in the west region and say in the south, all those other political parties that have their stronghold there, when they know that they are in alliance with MRC, they will do that job there. That political leader cannot go around
what happens,
all the 52
what happens if at the end of the day we cannot get a strong coalition?
Of course,
this existing can they
will come out from
the same thing. Of course,
that's what we have been saying here.
We will not be surprised. We will not be surprised. We will just be a normal thing for us, as we have believed since the 1992.
Because people still think that a single person can do it. The job is enormous.
Not within the Cameroonian context.
The job is enormous.
Yes, I think that, as I said earlier, it is not far-fetched for one person to do this. But in the present dispensation, it is a little bit difficult, because we have talked about some of the centrifugal forces that are against any single candidate doing this. And we have gone through, we are talking about the electoral code, we are talking about the means that the political parties, leaders, they have. Because when you also have to screen, you screen the political leaders and screen the parties and see what they have as their financing. Because when I take an example of a person like George Weah, when he won an election in Liberia, and I saw what was put in for George Weah to win. You know that in Liberia, I don't want to quote George Weah because he came at a time when very little men were in existence, and I mean the population of women actually was fleeing because of the war in Liberia, and therefore women were much more empowered in Liberia than the men. And therefore, for George Weah to come and break in and take him from Ellen Johnson was not an easy thing. People thought he was taken from a woman. Was not an easy thing. War had taken off all the men in Liberia. And therefore, there were just very few chunk of men who could gather the courage and break through. George Weah came. He came with money. That man came. There were helicopters flying all over Liberia doing campaigns. And we are asking ourselves in Cameroon, because what I see in Cameroon is that many people come to politics in order to get rich. You don't come to politics to get rich. So one candidate can do it if only, one, we have the electoral code that favors them. If the electoral code doesn't favor you, you will not do it. Secondly, if you have the means to be able to go through maybe the 52 divisions in Cameroon within 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, it means that you need that money to be able to dispatch your team to all crooks and crannies that we have in Cameroon. That is very important. You will not sit like somebody told me that you will sit and campaign on Facebook. It will be very, very difficult.
Okay.
You will not do that.
Thank you very much for coming, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leo. Permit me greet one of Cameroon's sons that is proud of. I'm talking about a multi-award winning global environmentalist who is Dr. Munang Richard. I send you special greetings, and to all Cameroonians who are preparing for the elections. I greet you all, and to all the faithfuls who celebrated the Ascension Day today. We continue to collaborate, Christians and traditional religion. Of course, they're coming closer as Pope John Paul II came with Ecclesia in Africa. We continue to live it, and enculturation, let it continue to take form, and we collaborate.
Mr. Ngwa, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you so much. I want to thank the team of technicians that made this program a success. I want to also thank Neo for not doing their job.
No, we may be here when there are no lights out there.
So I think all I can say is I'm still crying for the opposition to kindly come together, union fait la force, as they say it in French. If they do that, I think 2025 will be an electoral year with a difference in the Cameroonian history.
Okay, thank you all for watching, and to you, Desmond and Eli, for production. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.